Want an easy way to see if you could save money on car insurance? Geico gives you 3. Call 1-800-947-AUTO. Go online to geico.com or stop by the Geico office nearest you. 3 ways you could save 15% or more.
A Friday in the middle of the summer, headed to the Midsummer Classic with the final pieces of the NBA puzzle being placed together and the best part of the biggest fight of the year coming 6 weeks before they step into the ring. We'll get to all of that, but then, at the end of the day, the only thing anyone will remember is that Golic stirred his coffee with a pen and then put it in his mouth. We've got the video, and it's funny. It's all anyone is going to talk about.
I'm not sure why that's such an issue. I mean, I don't...
It isn't an issue. It's just something that everyone... It happened late in yesterday's show.
Yeah.
We were all of a sudden inundated. I guess I've seen you do it, but I've not given it much thought over the years. And then I guess yesterday on camera at one point it was captured. And we just started being inundated all of a sudden with tweets saying, did Golic just stir his coffee with a pen and then clean the pen off with his mouth? And it's just something that, generally speaking, human beings don't do.
No, but I think everybody now and then is caught in a situation where they're, however, mixing their coffee, away from an area that has A, utensils, or B, a coffee stirrer.
Uh-huh.
So you kind of have to make do. And I make do. I remember I did it one time. I have my reading glasses here with one of the
ear holders.
Yeah, whatever you
the
call arm
them.
Of the I used
the
that
frame,
one
yeah.
time. Yeah. I mean, whatever's going to work.
So you'll just stir your coffee with whatever's nearby.
Pretty much.
How about the finger of another person? Like if we just say, like Bickler, come over here, stir Golic's coffee with your finger. Would you be comfortable with that?
In a pinch, probably. Bickler, no.
No.
I mean, almost anybody else.
That's a finger you want to stay away from.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
By the way,
yeah.
You know how some people have strange sneezes?
Yes.
So we're getting so I don't know if we're delving into just ridiculous minutiae.
Oh, sure we are.
And we do have really good sports to get to here in a minute. But we're getting you were in there. Normally you get your makeup done first, then I go, and so I come in here after you. Today it got reversed. So I was in here about 15 minutes before you, and I'm just getting my computer set up and whatever. And all of a sudden there's a sound that emanates from that area of the studio that initially I could not identify.
Right.
I don't even know how to describe it. It sounded like a car had run over a water balloon, and it had popped with sort of a strange gurgling sound. And I looked up and I said, what the heck just happened? And Bickler said, I sneezed. He has the strangest sneeze of any person. You know, some people have a strange sneeze.
Sure.
He has this. So I'm trying to get him to sneeze now.
Well, is there
it.
any way that you can mimic that sneeze? And
Not really.
Kind of mimic
no,
the sound
no.
it makes?
I know what you're asking me for, and I can't do it. It's like a gestort. There's
like
no
what?
It was a snort with a st in it. It's hard to. I can't put it in any words.
So it's something we need to hear.
Yeah, you have to hear it. So we got someone go get some pepper or something.
Is that the best way? I mean, to make someone sneeze, does it still?
Well, he says
pepper?
he has allergies that he takes medicine for.
All right, go get a lot of pollen. Just throw it at him.
Yeah, or just take his medicine away. Between now and the end of the show, we got to capture on camera with audio Bickler sneezing.
So make sure, Bickler, if you feel another sneeze, do it into a microphone.
Yeah, be ready for this. At any moment, literally, we could have major news going here, but I'm going to break into programming at some point this morning if I receive word that Bickler is going to sneeze.
And I would say, Bickler, if you're going to do it, run and sneeze into Greeny's microphone.
Under no circumstances should you do that.
Off the top.
All right, let's go here. Friday today is a busy day at Wimbledon, and among those on the court will be Rafa Nadal and Venus Williams.
Yeah, Nadal, right now, he has won his last 25 completed sets in a Grand Slam. Most completed sets won. Men at a major since the Open era. He is now at 28 overall. He's looking to McEnroe. He's tied with Borg, so the next one will break the tie with Borg. McEnroe's at 35 and Federer at 36 as far as how many you're winning there. Andy Murray, how about this? Could reach the round of 16 for the 10th straight year at Wimbledon, which would match Roger Federer. It would be behind Jimmy Connors, did it 14 times. Venus Williams is the only remaining former Wimbledon champion left in the women's draw. 37-year-old, chance to become the oldest woman to reach the round of 16 at Wimbledon since a 37-year-old Martina Navratilova in 1994.
We're all rooting for Venus today. All right. Age is served in the NBA as well. Dirk Nowitzki and Vince Carter will both be back to play their 20th NBA season.
Really incredible. Dirk signs a 2-year, $10 million deal to stay with the Mavs. Will be his 20th, as Greeny mentioned, making Nowitzki and Kobe Bryant the only players in NBA history to play at least 20 seasons with one franchise. It's the two of them at 20. Tim Duncan played 19 with the Spurs. John Stockton played 19 with the Jazz. As far as Vince Carter, both these guys came out in the 98 draft. I had Hembo looking up in the other major sports the 98 draft, see how close people were to still playing. Do we think there's one? We won't tell Greeny. In baseball that you mentioned, one notable that's still playing. And
is there no football player left?
Football, we just missed a couple. You had Peyton Manning.
Right.
You had Woodson, Charles Woodson. You had Matt Hasselbeck. So they were close, but they're done. There is a baseball player who was from that draft that is still playing. But how about this? Vince Carter signed a one-year deal with Sacramento. The new rookie teammates he has, Harry Giles and De'Aaron Fox. Now, again, Carter came into the league in 1998. Harry Giles, De'Aaron Fox weren't even 1 year old at the time, and Justin Jackson was just 3 years old. So really just amazing. And the two of them are those two, and there's 5 others who have played at least 20 years in the NBA. The most is Garnett, Robert Parrish, Kevin Willis played 21 years, and then Dirk, Carter, Kobe Bryant, Kareem at 20 years.
Off the top.
Last night, Chris Sale struck out 12, coming in a 4-1 loss, but the number of strikeouts for Sale continues to be significant.
Yeah, it is somewhat ridiculous what he is doing and how well he's doing. It struck out 12. It marked his 12th 10-strikeout game this season. The only other pitcher to reach that mark by the All-Star break was Randy Johnson and Nolan Ryan. By the way, Randy Johnson did it 3 times. 1999, 13 times, 2000, 13 times, 2001, 14 times. Nolan Ryan did it in 77, 14 times, and in 73, 13 times. So those are the only 2 guys ahead of Sale.
Off the top.
And finally, Rudy Gay back to basketball, and the Spurs have a 2-year deal. And that makes sense to me. There's a guy who looking for a place that he can finally go and try and win in San Antonio, that last team that didn't really add anybody.
No, it's a guy coming off missed the last 41 games, blew his Achilles out, so that's what you're coming back from. He is 30 years old, so certainly you want to see how he's going to come back from that. Will be interesting. But, San Antonio, just, make those moves. They're the team that's always there, and you wonder what you get out of Rudy Gay. Again, his deal and the deals that are going around, forgetting him, Rudy's been around for a long time, but some of the other money going around has been pretty incredible.
Absolutely, and that is Off the Top with Mike and Mike. It's presented by Progressive Insurance. They'll compare rates for you so you get the best deal even if it's not with Progressive, saving you time and money. Now that's Progressive. Call or click today. We'll try and figure out what the new NBA math is in a moment. But first, I had to begin with this. My career-long beef with weather had a good night last night. Did you see what happened in the game between the Nationals and the Braves? They had a 3-hour no-rain delay. It barely rained. It sprinkled last night. They didn't even have to put the tarp on for most of it. And then when they took the tarp off, it was bone dry. They delayed that game 3 hours. It finished at 1:30 in the morning in front of friends and family.
Yeah, basically you got 15 minutes of rain is what you got. It downpoured for a very short time. Then there was a light spray, and that was it. And then there was people, they were showing fans sitting there in like shorts and a T-shirt dry and no game being played. So, I mean, it reminded me of in areas where there's snow, and you see it here in Connecticut, which the state here with snow days is a joke. But the weatherman, I really think, are in cahoots with somebody because they tell you how bad a storm's going to be, and immediately schools cancel the next day. And the next day, parents are looking out the window and going, what the hell do we cancel school for? Now I got to do something with my kids because there's no snow on the ground. So, I mean, you just get thrown by that whole thing.
Well, look, again, my long-standing beef with the people who do the weather on television, I come by it honestly. I was a local sports guy, and I'm telling you right now, in local television news, the sports people hate the weather people because the weather people are the golden children, and sports is the afterthought. And like in sports, I could have had a sit-down interview lined up with Michael Jordan that he was going to acknowledge to me things that he had never spoken about before. And then if all of a sudden weather came in and said, going to be windier than usual. Sorry, sports loses their truck and we're cutting you 45 seconds. Yep. Just put the score panel up. They live for weather. But the weather people do this by embellishing. They embellish what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So it's never going to be windy. It's going to be unbelievably. It's going to be a tornado. Yeah. Gale force winds. That's how they do this stuff. And that's how they wind up taking all the time and resources away from sports.
I agree. I mean, around here, whenever my wife and I are driving around, we see a branch on the ground. We know a news truck will be there eventually.
Of course.
And talk about just what made that branch fall from the tree.
They have to document it and in a perfect world, find someone who was almost hit by it.
It is amazing, but they just said a weather system was coming through. They were basically holding off because of that. There was light rain. That was it. The tarp was dry when they took it off. Everybody was dry. It was somewhat stunning for a game, as one player said. I'm talking to you at 1:30 in the morning for 10 minutes of rain.
Yeah, it was Gio Gonzalez who said
ridiculous,
that.
Yeah.
15 minutes of rain. I'm talking to you at 1:30 in the morning for a 15-minute delay. It was delayed 3 hours and 5 minutes. As a reward for fans who stuck around, Washington gave away free soda, ice cream, and water.
Oh, free water.
Well, they needed water.
Do they charge when you go to the water fountain?
I don't know. Did they throw water around to
Yeah,
make it look like it had rained on the field? Because they didn't have to. So there you have it. So my lifelong, or certainly at least career-long beef with weather people had a good night last night.
That was one for you last night, no doubt about it.
No question about it. Lord knows I've never gotten a prediction wrong. Okay, what else do we have here? MVP Moment of the Week brought to you by Sport Clips. Get a double MVP at Sport Clips haircuts for the price of a single MVP. Hurry, the deal ends on July 31st. Our MVP Moment of the Week, Mike, has now got a date attached. You have been talking for the longest time when Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather step into the ground.
Right.
Excuse me, into the ground.
Into the ground.
Into the ring. Into the ring.
Be hell of a something we're paying for.
That isn't really the moment you're looking for. What's the moment you're looking forward to between those two guys?
Oh, I mean, the press conference, the weigh-in,
We've
the whole
got
deal.
the press conference all set and ready to go. The press conference will be this Tuesday, July 11th at Staples Center. I did not see a time attached. Now, I'm actually going to be in L.A. Next Tuesday. I'm hosting the Humanitarian Awards dinner, which is wonderful, but completely separate from this. But I'm staying directly across the street from L.A. Live. So I might go to this, and I will file reports. I'm actually extremely interested to see what this thing turns into. The press conference is set for Tuesday.
So the first one. So do you think they start their beef right away? Do you think they jump right into it? Oh, I would hope so.
I'm curious to see what tone it takes. Do you know what I mean? There are varying levels of nastiness. So, these things are always somewhat nasty. There's no way in the world McGregor is going to get up there and say, well, he's a great champion, and I'm just honored to have the opportunity to fight him.
This is about selling pay-per-views, man.
Right.
So he's going to have to get up there, and all the old stuff's going to come out.
How nasty? How nasty? On a scale of 1 to 10.
Conor McGregor is one of the best smack talkers we have, and smack talkers that you have to beep out as well. But it's so good, you just got to keep the camera on him and the microphone on and let him go. And just wonder if a water bottle is going to get thrown, a chair is going to get thrown. I don't think that'll happen in the first one. But listen, these guys, now, is McGregor going to go in there and try and do his thing? Absolutely. The guy's a fighter, but the guy is also, he gets it. He's an entertainer. He knows how to rile up a crowd. So I'm sure some of that is obviously sincere. I think he's a bit of a nutcase as far as fighting, but to step in and do what you do, you kind of have to be, right? But he also understands the entertainment value of all of this as well and what sells. So what he does, he goes over the top with it, and he does it extremely well. Mayweather, I think, will be the more calm, cool, getting his lines in, and Conor will be the aggressive, loud, boisterous one. And that's what we're waiting for. Quite honestly, if we don't get it, it will be a major disappointment.
Floyd should just be sitting there with a cash register. He should just have like an ATM sitting next to him. And every time McGregor says something crazy, they should just ching, and that's it, because that's all this thing is about. You just made me think of something. The way you just said that. In order to do what Conor McGregor does for a living, to take his particular brand of crazy out of it.
Right.
Do you think you have to be crazy to be an MMA fighter? Is there a level of crazy?
There's a level of crazy.
Do you have to be crazy to be a boxer?
Absolutely. To go into there in a physical combat against another person, where the possibility of getting the whole, yes.
You're getting no disagreement?
Absolutely.
Do you have to be crazy to be a football player?
Yes, there's a level of crazy to be a football player.
I was
going
to say it's
absolutely.
Just how different are they? I mean, I understand the rules are different, but football is basically a series of, I'm not going to say they're MMA style clashes, because if a guy knocks you on the ground, he's not going to then jump on you and start punching you repeatedly in the face. But I mean, there is a similar element of crazy that I think is involved.
Oh, absolutely there is. Now, what levels you want to talk about? That. Whatever level you want to talk about, that's fine. But, yeah, there's an element of that when you're going out there and you're in basically hand-to-hand, combat with somebody, every play of a game, trying to hit somebody or somebody's trying to hit you. Yeah, certainly there's an element of crazy to it.
All right, we're Mike and Mike. Looking forward to that next week. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Guest, as always, on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, Mike Golic Jr. is in the room, and he will be up on our set with us in about 15 minutes. Okay, so the Knicks have extended an offer sheet to Tim Hardaway Jr., which There are a lot of funny things. I actually heard Mikey talking about it as I was on my way in this morning. There are a lot of funny things about this, okay? And the Knicks have become such an easy punchline.
Yeah, they have.
That it's easy to make fun of them. They had Tim Hardaway Jr. They traded him for Jerry and Grant, who they traded for Derrick Rose.
Yep.
And now they're going all the way back to get Tim Hardaway for $71 million in an offer sheet. And from what I'm reading about it, the Hawks were expecting Hardaway to get good offers, but nothing near this. So whether they will match or not remains to be seen. So you make all the jokes you want. It's easy, and it's all well-deserved.
Yes, it is.
But let me ask you just a quick question that is a real one. What is the new NBA normal? Like, we've entered, as of last year, we've entered a new NBA world. So are we in a world now, if Otto Porter is worth $100 million, which is what the offer sheet the Nets signed him to, and we'll see either Washington will match as they've said they're going to, or they won't. That they'll decide that. Kelly Olynyk got paid $50 million.
Yes, he did,
to go to Miami.
Can I say my line really quick?
Go ahead.
This is Hembo.
Go.
This was all Hembo.
Yeah.
Before the show, we're talking about Kelly Olynyk. He said Kelly Olynyk is now making more guaranteed money than Julio Jones, and I really don't know who the better basketball player is. It's a great line by Hembo.
It really is.
It really is a great line.
It is, and it's accurate, and yet. I mean, it is accurate.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Give Julio Jones a little time.
Yeah,
you tell me he wouldn't be a good NBA player.
I don't know. I think I'm going there.
The man's a superhero, but that's neither here nor there. So what is it? What is the real? So is $71 million for Tim Hardaway Jr. laughable, or isn't it? I don't know.
Well, I mean, to some people, it's going to be laughable. It's what the market holds for that sport. Again, let's understand. It's all part of a package of a CBA of revenue that you get. 51% players get revenue, and that sport makes unbelievable money. That sport, of which you have a 15-man roster, makes half of what the NFL makes with 2 more teams and 4 times the roster. The NFL makes $12 billion. The NBA, with 15 guys as opposed to 53, not counting the practice squad and such, makes $6 billion. And as part of the deal, you have to spend X amount up to that cap. So you have to spend the money. You can't just let it sit there, or eventually the whole big pot of it's going to go right to the players anyway, that you don't reach that level. There are minimums that you have to spend. So as that number goes up, the number of players on the court isn't going up. So the money's going to get there. This is where, when we start talking about if you paid the superstars whatever you had to pay them, actually by not doing that and them only making $30 to $40 million a year, it's leaving more money for the Otto Porters of the world, Otto Porters of the world, and Tim Hardaway Jr.'s of the world, because that money's got to be spent somewhere. And if you have a max that you can spend on your superstar, you have X amount of other money that you have to spend on the other players, and they're going to win. And then you start with what the market says. This guy has this stats, he gets this amount. That's now kind of what you use as a gauge. But they're in a sport that's flush right now. Again, understand. They're making half the money of the NFL and dealing with a quarter of the size of the roster. The math works big time in their favor.
I just did the math, actually, while you were talking, and I did the simplest way. So I just multiplied 15 times 30, which is 450, and then I multiplied 53 times 32. Again, it's not exactly that, but it's close.
Yes.
And that's 1,696, so roughly 1,700.
Yeah.
So roughly 1,700 versus 450, it's pretty simple. And the Apex guys get paid so much relative to everyone else in football, even more so than in basketball. Right? I mean, the richest of the rich in football get paid a far greater multiple of what the lower paid guys do than in basketball. So it's pretty simple. Outside of just a very select few, the basketball guys are going to get paid so much more money than the football guys, and that's just the reality. And the baseball guys, too, in a sport with no salary cap and an enormous amount of money.
And then if you really want to get after it, you'll pay somebody more because you can pay a luxury tax. Football, you can't.
Right.
It's another thing. You are locked by the hard cap. In basketball, you can say, you know what? We're going to pay even more. We're going to bring in another guy and pay him more, and knowing we're going over and write that check because we may get a championship out of it.
So to spin it all the way back to where I meant to begin this conversation, do we really make fun of the Knicks for this offer? Is this a ridiculous contract to be offering Tim Hardaway? The way they got there obviously leaves you some laughs, but they are where they are.
Forget money-wise. Is it a player that can help the team? I'm past the money stuff. I really am. I'm not going to be that old former player that says, oh, my God, look what they're getting paid. They're getting paid this because the leagues are flush with money and they're getting this money. I have zero problem with it. Now let's talk about forgetting the money. Is that the right player? Is this a player that's going to help this team? 25 years old. Can you build around him? He was with the Knicks once before. What I heard that Phil, even though he's not with him anymore, tried to call in and say, make sure you give him a no trade as well, because he got the 15% kicker, as well if he does get traded.
Phil Kohler wanted to know how he fit in the triangle.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, it's not so much about the money, but about the players. The player going to help. The money is going to be there. We all need to get past that, and understand that it's going to be there. Guys, you're going to just shake your head at saying, who is this player? As we said, Tim Hardaway Jr. is the second best Tim Hardaway to play basketball, and he's now making, $17 million a year. So I'm past the money. It's the player. Can the player help? Can the player be part of the solution for a team? That's more what I'm going to look at.
Adam Schefter just tweeted, Michigan men. Tom Brady has 3 years left on his contract and $58 million. Tim Hardaway Jr., 4 years and $71
Now, remember,
million.
It sounds ridiculous. Tom Brady took less. Tom Brady didn't go for these deals that a Derek Carr deal or deals like that. So Tom Brady could have. Tom Brady would have gotten it. You should get it, but he took less, so it certainly is going to look like less. But the comparison of football and basketball, gang, just don't do it, especially if you're a football player. It'll make your head spin.
The Hawks, of course, could still match that offer sheet. Mike Golic Jr. joins us up here in just a moment. Busy on a Friday morning with Mike and Mike. We're Mike and Mike, and Mike Golic Jr. has made his way in studio, and we seem to be, the three of us, dressed somewhat disconcertingly similarly this morning.
Yeah.
I have a feeling people are going to notice that.
You and I have more of the same type of shirt on, a black shirt with longer sleeves. Mike has the black pullover with short sleeves, but yeah.
Yeah, you can basically call us an L.A. Dodgers local TV market. It's a blackout up here on Friday.
We all look very similar right now. But anyway, always good to see you. A bunch of stuff here. Salty Rob tweets at us. This is 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter. Stirring coffee with random items would make Golic one step closer to being a Navy sailor. Hashtag it's natural. So I think there's looking at that.
Yeah, I don't listen. I'm getting a guy saying I'm a mechanic. I used a wrench one time, no straw, no problem at all. I use a pen as well. I'm in construction. I've used a screwdriver. I'd use that as well. Another guy with his pen. Would you stir? Seriously?
I was notorious for this with drinks at college parties when you would make a mixed drink, is I would just pick up whatever was around to stir it in and make sure the alcohol was evenly distributed, because the last thing you want is one strong hit at some point in the drink. So I'm grabbing whatever on the counter in a college house, which God knows how clean that is.
Give me an example of what it might have been.
I mean, it could be any item of any utensil, any silverware. A pen could have very easily found its way into the mix. All those things are in play. I mean,
anything
I won't
that
tell you
fits
some of the
into
more nefarious items.
Yeah, this is kind of how it works, right? I'm 54 and talking about stirring coffee. He immediately, who's 27, goes right to the mixed drink.
I party.
JK tweets.
That's fine.
JK tweets, I worked with a guy who was a mechanic and used a wrench to stir his coffee. I don't want to suggest that I'm the crazy one in all of this, but if a mechanic used a wrench to stir the coffee and then clean the wrench off with his mouth, I don't know that I want him using that wrench in my car.
I don't know. We don't know that he cleaned the wrench off with his mouth. He may have wiped it with a rag.
I get that, but then it doesn't really impact me.
But listen, this is all people using the tools in their workplace environment with what they got to do. You work in a medium where the pen is one of your primary tools.
Exactly right.
That guy works at a place where a wrench is his primary tool. Yasiel Puig was licking his bat the other day.
Yeah, he was.
You use whatever's around.
There you go.
Mark Schlereth's peeing his pants. I don't know how that's relevant, but I think it's somewhere in there. There's a connection.
You just do that because you do that as well. You did that as well. Yeah.
I had someone ask me the other day. They were taking a poll of their friends that played football. How many guys peed their pants?
Yeah.
And I was shocked at the number that didn't. I figured that was a pretty commonplace thing.
I never did. I know you did. I know Schlereth did. I know others that did. I never did.
I was surprised. Fellow offensive lineman Jeff Schwartz not in the pee your pants crowd.
Yeah, I would think more toward the offensive lineman.
That's what I figured. Big, big fluffy guys. It's a long jog, a long slow lineman trot to the bathroom off the sideline. So why not just we're all going to power sweat through our shorts anyway. Why not help the cause?
This is Mike Golic Jr. with Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. You wanted to pay off in the 1998 draft.
So again,
Vince
the 1990
Carter,
we have Dirk Nowitzki and Vince Carter both in the 98 draft. We talked about how Vince Carter's playing with guys now that were a year old or 3 years old who are his teammates now.
Before you give the answer to the question, which is the player that was drafted in that draft
in the 1998 draft in the other major sports who is still active.
I'm trying to remember that draft. Vince Carter went third, if I remember correctly, right? Tracy McGrady was in that draft. Nowitzki, as I recall, went like 8 or 9. Which year? Was that the Iverson draft? Was that the year he went? Who was first that year? Oh, that was the Olowokandi draft.
Yeah.
It was Olowokandi. Okay, and Vince Carter was fifth. Okay, I had it right. Here we go.
Yep.
Olowokandi went 1. Mike Bibby went 2. Rafe LaFrentz, remember him?
Yes.
Went 3. Anton Jameson, Carter's teammate in college, went ahead of him and went 4, and a good NBA career.
Mm-hmm.
Vince Carter, 5, still going. Robert Tractor Trailer was 6. Jason Williams, White Chocolate, was 7.
Mm-hmm.
Larry Hughes, 8. Then Dirk, and then Paul Pierce.
So Paul Pierce just okay. So right
played
there.
right up until just now.
Right.
But just look at. I always love looking back at drafts and seeing. We always talk about the biggest misses of all time, and we all know. You're going to take Sam Bowie ahead of Michael Jordan. That's going to get the headlines. You're going to take Greg Oden ahead of Kevin Durant. That's going to get the headlines. But in this draft, look at all the players that were drafted all the way up at the top. I mean, at the top of this draft, Michael Olowokandi, Mike Bibby, and Rafe LaFrentz. While Paul Pierce was sitting there, and he went number 10. He's going to the Hall of Fame. Dirk Nowitzki, who's on the fast track to the Hall of Fame.
Went number 9,
Vince Carter, who obviously, he's going to go to the Hall of Fame, and he had a very big career. I'd like looking back and seeing some of the
I do
mistakes.
too. It is always interesting to look. But back to the question, that was the 98 draft. In the NFL, the closest you had was Peyton Manning, Charles Woodson, and Matt Hasselbeck. So guys that basically just finished.
Was Adam Vinatieri drafted? He's always the answer to the question who's been in the league the longest. I think he was playing then. He just may not have been drafted.
We're talking about the 98 draft. The 98 draft in baseball, active, there are actually 3. There's Ryan Matson, a journeyman relief pitcher, Matt Holliday, and the first one we thought was CeCe Sabathia.
CeCe was drafted in the 98 draft.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
So we're just talking about, because
people
are saying Carlos Beltran. He was drafted in 95, actually. He's been around longer. But we're talking about people from that draft. Vinatieri was the 96th. The 1996, he was undrafted that year.
So he came into the league all that long. All right, Mike and Mike, we got a lot going here. I wanted to get one thing in early, and we had Dominique Foxworth on late in the show yesterday, and there was so much that came of that conversation that was interesting, and we'll dive into the issues surrounding players and suspensions and drugs and what a league/employer's responsibility is in that circumstance. But one of the things that came out in that discussion that I certainly would not have guessed before we went into it was the following. We're sitting here talking about how much money basketball players are making, how much money baseball players make, and how much they both make relative to football players. Then you talk about football being a cap sport, basketball being a cap sport, and baseball being an uncapped salary sport. Well, Dominique Foxworth pointed this out, and he was right.
Major League Baseball doesn't have a salary cap, as everyone knows, but the percentage of revenue that goes to the players is less than both basketball and football. So it's kind of counterintuitive how we talk about these things, about how much money is going to the players, and we assume that not having a salary cap always benefits all the players. But what it actually does is benefit the high-end players, and the lower-end players get squeezed. So I'm certainly a proponent of eliminating the salary cap, but it's important to understand that there's a bunch of different mechanisms that operate within the CBA other than just kind of a hard salary cap number.
So just for a brief moment, and you could, I would bet you anything you could win a bar bet with this one. Would you have guessed that Major League Baseball pays their players' salaries on average, since there's no salary cap, it varies roughly from year to year, but right around 40% of their total revenue, where basketball and football are both right around 50%.
Yeah, football's about 47 and 48, and basketball's 51, so that much lower. I was surprised to hear that as well.
Absolutely stunned.
Yeah, but it makes sense, and it's what happens in a lot of the other sports just in general is our perception is sort of artificially inflated by the big numbers we see of the top-end guys, and we neglect what is the meat of the bell curve in most cases salary-wise, and baseball is the most bloated example of that, where you can have, I saw the salaries for the home run derby participants, and up at the top you have Giancarlo Stanton, who's making over $300 million in his contract, and in the other ends you have a bunch of guys making around you have a very large portion of that group making in the hundreds of thousands as opposed to millions, and so you can bloat perception with these monster contracts that we always associate with the A-Rods and the Stantons of the world that make that big-time money, and we just kind of forget every everyone else, especially in baseball.
Yeah. The difference of the disparity of baseball individual contracts is like that of teams. When you have a team payroll of $39 million and a team payroll of $220 million, that's kind of how it is with the players. It kind of mirrors what it is with the individual players.
I just wonder how many people would have guessed that.
No.
If I said to you, Mike Golic Jr., yesterday morning, do the baseball players get a larger percentage than there's a disparity between the percentage of total revenue the baseball players get relative to football and basketball, the cap versus no cap. What percentage of people do you think would guess, the baseball players must get a much higher percentage, when in reality it's much lower? It took me enormously by surprise.
I'd have guessed none, and it's one I can't believe I didn't stumble across, because this seems to be CBA Education Month around every year in the summer when we're going through all of these contract things. And I remember pouring through the NFL and the NBA CBAs last summer looking at this kind of info. Never once thought to peek under the hood at Major League Baseball, just because you're used to thinking no salary cap, gigantic paydays, everyone's doing fine.
Absolutely. All right, Mike Golic and Mike Golic Jr. have a movie review of a big movie everyone has seen that they saw last night. We'll get that coming up next, and we'll go in search of a definition of the word obligation. What exactly is the obligation of a professional sports league or any business, any employer, towards the people that work there?
Okay, keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
I want to show you my first ever painting.
All right.
Okay. Open your eyes.
Oh, that's a lot of colors and shades.
So be honest. What do you think?
Well, I like how if you switch to Geico, you could save hundreds of dollars on car insurance.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Here, why don't I hold your paintbrush while you call them?
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Quickly, at Legend tweets at us, you guys keep sitting up there praising McGregor. Money's going to beat the brakes off this guy while you hope he wins. I don't hope he wins at all.
Never said I hope he wins. We're talking about promoting a fight. Mayweather's going to win this thing. I know you have disagreed, Mike. I think you
think McGregor's going to win?
Oh God, no!
No, that's right.
I said Mayweather's going to win by knockout.
You said
whenever
Mayweather's
he feels
going to knock him out whenever he wants. That's right. You went that way. My bad.
Firmly in that.
No, I think Mayweather's going to win this fight easily.
I'm just
absolutely
hoping,
easily.
I'm going to pay for it. I am that sucker born every minute.
Me too.
And so I am just hoping that we get a night of entertainment.
That's all.
That's worth
all
it.
We're looking for. The fight could be the worst part of this thing.
That's what I'm saying. We're not paying for the fight. We're paying for what starts on Tuesday. That's what we're paying for. This is what we're getting. We're getting it on the front end, and then we just have to pay later on.
Pay in the back end. We have to pay for
yeah.
The culmination of this thing, is what we're paying for.
Exactly. Well, we're paying at the culmination, but we're paying for what starts on Tuesday.
I agree.
As people doing sports talk radio in the month of July, we're paying for that content come Tuesday. Yeah. Thank you in advance.
What I'm generally hoping for is that Tuesday isn't more interesting than the night we pay for. Right? Whatever it is that happens Tuesday, I saw the notice. It's open to the public. It will be. They want it on every television network everywhere. So that's free. I hope that Tuesday isn't more entertaining than August 26th.
Tuesday, any other press conference after that, the weigh-in, I think it's all going to be more entertaining than the fight, quite honestly.
Well, I don't know.
I think it
if
is.
Mayweather just takes him apart, if it's obvious that he's toying with him, that could be entertaining. If McGregor makes it into more of a fight than we're expecting, if he actually lands something that looks like a substantial enough punch that it makes you go, whoa, then I've immediately gotten my money's worth. What will be the enormous disappointment is if McGregor is ridiculously, obviously outclassed, but Mayweather is content, as he frequently seems to be, to just play his defense, land a couple of jabs, win by an easy decision, and we sit through 36 minutes of that. That would be the disappointing outcome. Anything else, I'll feel I got my money's worth.
We'll see. I mean, again, we'll have to wait and see. How competitive it is.
Mix in a knockout entertainment. Knockouts are like the home runs of boxing.
Absolutely.
We're always here for a good knockout. Throw in a little blood, a la the Horn-Pacquiao fight, always makes the action look pretty intense. And I think you got the makings of something that, Greeny, to your point, could make you feel good enough about that night.
I agree.
In the interim.
I agree.
But the press conference is still going to probably be better.
My point is the odds are it's going to be the other way, unless your way, Mike, takes hold and Mayweather knocks him out whenever he wants, because I agree with you. We all want to see a knockout. We all want to see blood. I mean, that's what we sit there and watch. I mean, you think when you go to an MMA fight, you don't want to see somebody bleeding all over the place? It's exactly what you want to see. I mean, who are we kidding?
While we're on that topic, I will mention the WBO, in responding to a complaint by the Philippines Games and Amusement Board representing Manny Pacquiao, the WBO says they will rescore the Pacquiao-Horn welterweight title fight for absolutely no reason. And when I say that, here's the reason why. They have no authority to change the result. So they will go back, they will rescore the fight. They're going to have 5 judges independently watch it and come back with scores and determine whether they think the decision was correct or not. But the outcome, the result of that rescoring will have no impact upon their own handing of the belt to, it's their belt, right? It was their belt that the fight was about. They will rescore the fight themselves. But they say they themselves have no authority to overturn the decision. So why they're bothering to rescore this thing, I really have no idea.
I would say this is similar to the NBA 2 Minutes reports, where this is purely to hold the officials in place accountable, and in this case, the judges, basically to publicly shame them. To say you're a part of this process like everyone else, and if you did your job so poorly, we're going to make light of that.
Yeah, we're going to throw you to the lions on this one and say, hey, this is on you guys. This is on you guys.
Although not for nothing, in that the most interesting thing to me was the fact that the Philippines has a games and amusement board that I would like to get on board with and investigate rampant issues of monopoly cheating and whatnot going on. That seems like something that'd be a little more up their alley and a little more worthwhile. It's a very common problem.
Mike and the Twitter through the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. Nothing makes a summer, birthday, or anniversary more magical than 1-800-Flowers.com. Right now, when you order a dozen multicolored roses for only $29.99, you get another dozen absolutely free. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. You guys saw Wonder Woman last night. Your thoughts?
I thought it was good. I thought it was the most well-constructed DC movie that we've seen to date. It seemed like they actually had a plan going into this one. They developed a character for once, which was nice. The lead character, is it Godot? Her last name?
Yes, Godot, I believe it is, yes.
Yeah, I thought she was a sensational, really worthy Wonder Woman.
She's great. Yeah, she does it very, very well.
Did a great job over that. Overall, I heard a lot of people, Jen Latta said it was a little slow for her and never felt like it dragged for me.
I liked it as well. I love how they set up the character. They took Wonder Woman all the way back as a child and the Amazon women and how it all developed and got to work. I liked it. I thought Chris Pine, who played the guy lead in this, I thought he did a really good job. I liked what he did as well. So I liked it. I liked how they developed the character. I think she's fantastic in playing this superhero, and I look forward to the ones when she's now teamed up with others.
Justice League, a lot of high hopes for that, especially coming off of what utter dreck the Suicide Squad was.
So there's the review. You guys, on a scale of 1 to 5?
I gave it 3. I gave it 3 donuts.
Solid 3.
Yeah.
All right. Well done.
Jody Avergan here. Later this year, ESPN will bring you 30 for 30 podcasts, the great film series, now a new series of sports audio documentaries. This will be big. We're finding the best stories for you right now, and to do that, we're behind the wheel of the new Mini Countryman, the biggest mini yet. To find great stories, you have to get out into the world and follow your instincts. That's where the new Mini Countryman comes in handy. With all 4 all-wheel drive, we can chase down a story in the city, the country, and most places in between. Podcast equipment isn't very bulky, but even if you're hauling a lot of gear, there's plenty of cargo space for all your stuff, and if a few of our producers want to tag along, no problem. Mini Countryman comfortably seats 5. The Countryman may be big, but it still drives like a Mini thanks to the twin-power turbo engine. No matter what story you're chasing, the new Mini Countryman will help you find it. It's available now, and the new 30 for 30 podcasts are coming this June. Visit miniusa.com/new countryman.
We are Mike cubed this morning in a variety of different ways. Mike Golic Jr. is here, and we're all dressed alike. That just sort of is what it is. I want to mention also that next Wednesday is a very special day every single year here for us, the 2017 SB Day auction to benefit the V Foundation for Cancer Research. Maybe the most important thing we do all year. If you go right now to ebay.com/ESPN, you will see, I think, an unprecedented list of experiences that are up there this year. Great stuff. I was looking through it yesterday. Basically, everybody here put something up there.
Yeah,
so experiences with all different people, everyone you know from ESPN and almost everyone you know from across the spectrum of sports. And every penny goes to fighting cancer. So ebay.com/ESPN.
I like how you jumped into that one, Mike. Trey and myself and Mike are doing an experience to come to the show, like we've done for this show.
Sure.
Come to the show, and then after the show, do a barbecue. and then Mike offered to do the barbecue at his house. So it seems we're going to be going the winners to barbecue at Mike's house.
I live alone, and I don't entertain all that much. Most of my friends are utter slobs, and I'm really worried about letting them in the vicinity of anything in my house. And so I figure, why not let a bunch of strangers? I have an air hockey table that, as a person that lives alone, can tell you is probably the worst purchase of my life.
That is
it's the saddest air hockey table.
The young single guy, instead of a dining room table, is an air hockey table, which I think is awesome.
I thought I was going to have a lot more people over, and then I realized I'm not that popular. I'm not that social. Most of my days are spent pantless watching Netflix. That's just my life at this point.
Okay,
of all the different tables you could have gotten, though, the air hockey is one that absolutely requires a second person. Like a ping pong table, you can put up that other end of it, and you can sort of play off the wall.
And he has one of those, too.
A pool table, you can certainly play and practice by yourself. Air hockey was an interesting choice.
It's a good air hockey table. I mean, it's a good quality table.
Good quality.
He just...
Do you eat on it? Do you use it as a kitchen table?
No.
I mean, it went months without getting touched. It is the world's saddest air hockey table. It is a nice summation of my existence at this point, which is isolated and often lonely. But when you get around a lot of people, very fun.
There you go.
My experience is golf, as you would imagine.
I'm still stuck on the pantless watching Netflix all day.
You can be part of that experience, too, if you play your cards right.
You've pretty much described, well, whatever. Let's just move on from that.
This is taking a turn.
Mine is golf. You can play. It's an 18-hole playing lesson with my pro who
I was just going to say,
life.
You're not giving the lesson,
No,
right?
I'm just playing along and watching. But my pro, Dan Tisvanis, who, when I started working with him, I was a 24. And as of I have 2 more rounds that I'm going to play between now and the 15th. But at my the next time that my index updates, right now I'm training to be an 8-6. So I'm really getting somewhere. And this is all because of my pro. So you can take an 18-hole playing lesson with him. We'll play at Bayonne Golf Club. Take a private boat to get there. It'll be you and a guest and Dan and me. It's an 18-hole playing lesson. I'll just play along.
Cool.
Yeah,
I might start bidding on that. I could use some help.
He is the man to help you. And I'm amusing. And as Golic can tell you, I'm mentally fragile.
Just
people ask me the most frequent question I get when I'm on the golf course. People, "Hey, Greeny, how you doing?" The most frequent question I get is, "Does Golic play? Does he like to play golf?" And I always say, Golic likes to play. I would describe you as one who likes to play.
Playing.
It's not you don't love it. It's not in your blood. You enjoy playing. But for people like me who take it much too seriously, you are the worst person to play with. Golic is the guy who, if there's water off to the right, will yell, not in your backswing, but after you've addressed the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do what's completely wrong.
But $50, you put it in the water. Which everyone will tell you the key to training your mind is not to even acknowledge that the water is there.
But I thought there was all that. My thought was there's all kind of gambling. Like we just went on Monday the 3rd.
Yes.
Me, you, Mike Periano, and Alex, Mike's son, Alex Periano, and Alex and I were right next to each other about 100 yards in, and he was the first to say, let's put money on who's closer to the pin on this shot.
No, that does happen all the time.
Okay.
Who's closer to the pin is one thing.
So what's wrong with
$50 you miss it.
$50 you put it in the water, not on the green. What's the difference?
No, because it's something Rodney Dangerfield would have done in Caddyshack, and it's not something that I'm interested in.
Well, and once you establish money on the round, like if I'm playing you for any cash amount on the hole, best believe I'm going to remind you that water's there. If you're the better, it's like playing in a mutter. I have to drag you down to my level if I'm on the golf course because I'm out in the golf course because I like to drink outside.
Is there anything wrong with that?
No, but it's why I don't like playing with you. So if you want to play with me and my pro, you can bid. And again, all kidding aside, every penny goes directly to fighting cancer. So it's Wednesday for the auction, and you can go to ebay.com/ESPN to see all the items. Okay, let's get to business here. Golic Sr. was about as good as he's ever been yesterday on this topic. I want to set it up again as we did yesterday with D'Angelo Williams' comments. He was on Adam Schefter's podcast,
right.
Know Them From Adam, which is terrific. Schefter gets great guests every single week, and they open up with him. And D'Angelo Williams talked about many things, including the National Football League and his view of the league's responsibility towards players when they have issues with drugs. This was D'Angelo Williams.
The rules are so outdated. This is the issue that I have with the NFL. We preach family, 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 family. And as soon as something happens, we're individual. We are individual. And this is the cherry on top that really bothers the hell out of me. And fans should really understand this. This is what drives me. So if a guy get busted for pot or street drugs or something like that, they suspend him for 4 games. He can't come around the guys that's going to keep him from the pot. They put him in. They're going to put him right back in there with the guys that he got busted with. They isolate him from the positive vibes and influence that he going to have in the locker room that's going to keep him off of the stuff. They're going to put him back in the vicinity, in the area, and in the place where he got busted at. So the guys that you're trying to keep him away from, you push him back to them because that's who he's going to fall back on.
All right, so let's start by just correcting or clearing up what the rules actually are.
I do admire, he has passion for this, but he's wrong. And so as far as him saying the fans need to know, fans and everybody needs to know what really happens. As far as, and he's talking about the recreational drugs, about marijuana, saying if they get a 4-game suspension and not allowed the facility, that's wrong. You actually have to have 6 violations, of marijuana to be suspended for the year. 6. And then you can't come around the facility. Before that, the 5th one gets you a 10-game suspension, but you can be in the facility. The 4th time you do it, it's a 4-game suspension, and you can be around the facility. And the 1, 2, 3 times before that, 2 times it's a fine, and 1 time you just enter the program. So I just want the facts to be out there. With recreational drugs, it's different than PEDs and other types of suspensions. So they are in the locker room. And I guess I would say, to D'Angelo, we as players, and Mike, you know this, preach way more about family atmosphere than the league does, though the league does as well. Players do as well. So you got a player in there who's been tested positive, still around the facility, and how are we helping? Are we helping our teammates? I think we need to look at that. Dominic Foxworth brought that up as well. But it goes to the larger picture of then the responsibility and the help. My big thing yesterday was along the lines of, I'm tired of trying to somewhat pass the buck and say, what are you going to do for us when you are the one that we need to look in the mirror more of personal accountability, especially with the marijuana thing where it takes, again, 6 violations to get suspended for the year to keep saying, what are you doing over and over and over and over again? That's more on you. And we keep on wanting to say, what is somebody else going to do for us? It's a fair conversation to have. Okay, you're in this situation. Where's the help coming from the NFL and the NFLPA, both of which have programs for this? But a lot of my talk yesterday, Mike, was about personal accountability. You're the one doing what is deemed illegal, even though we all think it should be legal at some point, but that's not the point. It's illegal now. You are knowingly doing it, and I just think we need more personal accountability for that.
Yeah, and I understand that's not the point, but it also is the point. And one quick thing is the idea that also by being in an NFL locker room that you're insulated from the world of street drugs is also kind of a laughable premise, because most of the people, if you've ever been around one of those environments that are doing it and doing it with you, are some of the guys that are in that locker room. Right. So it doesn't make you immune, but I understand the structure and the idea. And that's what it's really about, to your point. That's why I say it's not the point until it's the point. Yes, I believe personal accountability under the set of rules, but we hear this in a larger societal sense about low-level drug offense laws, where it targets a specific group of people at a really, inordinate rate to the point where it seems unfair and it seems like it is targeting. And we have a rule right now where we're talking about getting guys help and doing something on a rule of something that we're talking about and starting to slowly admit is a lot better for you comparatively than the opioids you're being prescribed in that same locker room. And so all of a sudden we're talking about getting guys help for something that's not as bad as something we're prescribing them on the other end. Then at some point that is kind of on the larger system in place to say we've got a structure that's putting these guys unnecessarily at risk of getting out of the one place where maybe these guys, the skills, I heard Dominique talk about it the other day, that myopic mentality that you've built your skill set and your lifestyle around this particular sport, and you've got this thing that comparatively is the lesser of two evils that we're starting to have concrete, evidence to back up, and you're going to have that be the reason that those guys are taken away from that earning potential. I get that there's personal accountability in there, but at some point you have to understand that what you're looking at comparatively just isn't as dire.
Yeah, I mean, there's two separate things. There's the personal accountability, and I got so many tweets yesterday of they should legalize it, that these guys shouldn't have to follow that rule. Listen, I don't like 55-mile-an-hour speed limit, but if I drive 70, get a ticket, it's my own fault. So, I mean, you still have to follow the rules in place, to your point, and I agree. I really think, Greeny, they need to ramp up the studies, and there are plenty going now about what can help not just football players, athletes, anybody, as far as pain, and if it can be less addictive and less bad for you than the opioids are. So this grows to a much bigger topic.
Correct. So we really are
right.
In that regard, we're having two separate conversations concurrently with one another. One of them is whether or not the National Football League should be testing for marijuana and or should have it be something that is against the rules. And which I'm 1,000% on that side. I do not believe that marijuana should be something the league is testing for. It's just that simple. Whether you want to have it on the books or off the books until it is legalized in the majority of states or whatever it is. If you want to be able to, with the
you
optics,
can't condone it, but you don't have to test for it.
Look, Major League Baseball for the longest, the National Football League, steroids were against the rules of the National Football League, but no one was testing for them. So you would have to walk in and say, "Excuse me, I just want you to know I'm using steroids," and then walk out in order to get caught doing it. You could solve all of this problem by doing that. So there are a number of jobs. Look, I understand if you're an airline pilot or a truck driver or
neurosurgeon.
Yeah, that there would be mandatory drug testing involved in something like that. But these are athletes. Now, I get that you want to, if you're paying an athlete X amount of dollars, you want to know that they're taking the best care of themselves. But in my view, if they're not giving you a reason to be concerned about it, there's no reason you should be testing for it.
Yeah, if we've already got that handshake agreement, we call it the idiot test because it's so blatantly obvious to everyone. And I get that kind of feeds into the accountability argument, but that also feeds into the why are we doing it argument, other than the fact that you're trying to maybe save face for a league in a time where, that's not really the stigma that it once was.
So that's that part of the discussion. The more interesting, well, maybe not more interesting, but the also interesting discussion that we really got into more yesterday was the issue of personal accountability versus the responsibility / obligation of, in this case, a professional sports league, which is a multi-billion-dollar operation, or an employer, a major company, a la the Walt Disney Company, whom we all work for, ESPN, whom we all work for, which is also a multi-billion-dollar organization, down to much smaller groups. What is the obligation because I got a million tweets from people yesterday, I don't know this to be true, that said, if I get caught using drugs, I get fired from my job. No discussion, no talk about it, no nothing. Now, I don't know what jobs those are.
I think there's a lot of jobs where I think that happens.
Well, again, so which jobs? And what jobs are people being drug tested that they would get caught?
I don't know if it's normally so much drug tested because a lot of these guys aren't they're getting caught with marijuana. They're getting pulled over for speeding, and then there's the smell of marijuana. There's marijuana in the car. So
they're getting arrested.
And then the arrest, they don't end up going to jail for it. But that, to the league, is you're involved with marijuana. So it's not always getting caught testing for marijuana.
I understand that, but the involvement with marijuana is something that is prescribed by the National Football League to be against their rules. Most other places it is not. If you or I were to get pulled over for speeding and there were drugs in our car, we'd get arrested. The problem we'd have would be with our employer would be the arrest, not the drug. It's a distinction, and that in this case is a difference, right, Mike Jr., which is it's in the National Football League, the problem is they'll live with the arrest. The problem is the drugs. In most cases, the problem is going to be the fact that you as an employee got arrested, not so much the use of the drugs.
Yeah, you're not dealing with the penalty coming off of that. Your penalty is that you go into a program where now you get tested for that substance, where, to your point, either because you're already fired or because that in them is the lesser of what's gone on in the public regard for you and your company.
So all things considered, and I know that we're sort of dancing around what I wanted to be the meat of the issue, where is in your view, as a 27-year-old young man sort of starting a career and all that kind of stuff in the world, and with the inner workings of sports knowledge that you have as well, where is the responsibility and the obligation of the league, of the employer? Where does that end and personal responsibility begin?
I have a tough time drawing a clear line on it. I'll say because the problem that the NFL falls into and why it's so easy to lob this the other way at them is when you build it so clearly into your marketing campaigns and everything else. This idea that football is family. And listening to talk about it, I mean, we hear this with people that are struggling with addiction all the time, is that you'll see the family go on and hang on to hope much longer after everyone else has given up. It takes so much down the line for even the family to look and say that this is beyond reproach. This is something that's beyond our hope. So if you're operating under that regard in the truest sense of what family is, then you're going to be that invested in it. And that to me, if you're going to make that direct comparison, would mean that there is no limit to what you go through there in trying to find a better way to help someone. Now, I understand that's a little more difficult when you've got as many people, but the comparison between a company like, let's say, Disney, where the parts are so spread out and varied, as opposed to the NFL, where you've got the glut of your people all in the same building every day. In that same small building, you can have ownership on down from your GM to the last guy on your roster and the towel boy, and you're all in the same place every day around each other and seeing each other in a way that just breeds a level of familiarity that I don't think exists in those other places.
I think every company, though, to a point, talks about family. They want everybody wants ESPN. This building here, how many do we house here? A few thousand people?
Yeah, a lot.
They want to talk about a family atmosphere. Everybody wants a family atmosphere. Because you say that, I don't think means that you're obligated for the rest of that person's life to take care of them if they have an issue. If I have an issue here at ESPN and I leave, do I expect ESPN to take care of me for the rest of my life? Hell no. I don't. And they preach family here. Don't you think most companies preach family? Most companies will say they want a family atmosphere. The NFL isn't alone in that. All do that, but does that mean then you're obligated to that person? Just like you were my son, if I had a problem, you'd be with me forever. If you had a problem, I'd be with you forever. Do we have to expect that when every company says we want a family atmosphere? Really, how far does that go?
I get that it's somewhat lip service, but I think this might have been a point that Dominique made yesterday, is you're also in a unique set of circumstances because you're dealing with something that's not a transferable skill set. If I were to get fired at ESPN for some sort of drug-related impropriety, there's a good chance that I could take my skill set here and apply it to a local television network, one of the other sports television networks, and I would still be okay. And I think I heard him say yesterday, you don't get to go play in the other National Football League. And we always hear the right privilege thing, but listen, these guys' skill set dictate the job that they go towards. And so when you take them out of it for something like that and leave them without resources, it sort of ends up being like the almost like getting disability after you're done playing. If this is something that you incurred because of your time in the NFL as a player injury-wise, in a lot of cases you can find a way to get money for the rest of your life off that because it's a direct result of this specific line of work. And this seems to be another instance where it's a specific line of work where because of how specific this rule is, it can have you out of it in a place where you're not in less of a condition than the general working population to go and find alternate
That's
employment.
where I agree with the line, like the disability. Like if you play football and you blow out your knee or your back because of the job you're in, you're willing to take that risk, but there's also on the other side, there is the disability to take care of you. So where does that line keep going? Does it go to the suit now with opioids? If you get addicted to Vicodin because you're hurt and you're in pain and they prescribe that, now you overtake it and become addicted to it, where does that fall? Should they be taking care of you for that? All the way to if you just want to, if you're sitting around smoking marijuana. I know a lot of guys are going to say, well, I smoke because it makes me feel better and it takes away the pain. I think you would even admit that's not true of everybody. Guys like to smoke. Guys like to smoke. And not every guy that lights up is saying, boy, I'm doing this because I'm in pain. They're doing it because they like to smoke. So how far up does the responsibility go to say, well, this guy's been busted a lot for marijuana. He's gotten suspended. We need to take care of him for years after he's done playing. I think there's got to be a line somewhere, and I think that's what we're trying to find. The difference of blowing your knee out so bad you have to get a fake knee or your back or whatever to getting disability to how far do we let that go to say, yeah, we need to take care of that person?
So the sum total of all this is that what we're talking about here is an extraordinarily small number of people. Since 2006, only 21 players have been suspended for a full season for a substance abuse violation. That's basically 2 players per year. It's 1.9 players per year. So out of a league of 1,700 players, in an average, if you just multiply the number of teams by the number of players, we're talking about roughly 1,700 people. It turns out to be more than that, actually, if you see the way the rosters turn over. So we call it close to 2,000 people. It's 2 people a year we're talking about. I mean, that's what we're really talking about. We're talking about an incredibly small percentage of the overall workforce. I don't know how that factors into this discussion. Does that make it any better? I guess it doesn't for them. But it's not like we're talking about something that affects the majority of players.
No, and you could argue that could make it easier for a billion-dollar industry to say, all right, we're going to focus some of our efforts on trying to help these guys as a collective. It doesn't mean supporting them all as individuals, but finding a way to better the collective. I mean, hell, this is the same NFL that brought Ray Rice back on board to preach a message about how, the the evils of domestic violence to the next groups coming in. Who's to say you can't have a similar program that brings back in former members who may have suffered because of this, who can, rely on each other's experiences, who as a group can maybe find ways to overcome it. And maybe there's some extent of that going on, but it's nothing I've ever heard about before. The Players Trust, the NFLPA, they've got programs after the fact that try and help bridge guys into life after football. But if you're one of these guys, there's a lot of guys, and this happens even in college sports. There are guys that just slip through the cracks. Sure. Because when you're a guy that finds yourself off a team, whether it's because of injury or suspension, it's very easy to just say, that guy's not our problem anymore, and forget about him. And we wouldn't do it if it was an injury. So why would we do it if it's someone that's potentially sick and addicted?
So it comes back all the way back to your question, Greeny, which I don't think there is a hardcore answer for. When somebody does do that, how far does the obligation go? I mean, and I guess for every company, it's different.
And there isn't a line. I mean, to Mikey's original point, it's not like there's a very clear-cut line, but it feels like something that you would understand what is reasonable and what is not. And as I listen to your explanation of what the NFL rule is, it does not strike me as unreasonable. This is a treat for us. It has been a long time coming. He's the senior writer at The Undefeated, has been covering sports so well and for so long for so many different people, and has made his way to our studio for the first time. We go Mike, and Mike again this morning.
How about that?
With The Undefeated's Mike Wise. Pleasure to have you here.
Be remiss if I didn't say my sister is listening, and she is bat crazy. She loves you guys.
Really?
Yeah, she's nuts.
We like people like that a lot.
Yeah,
she obviously is the brains of the operation.
Well, that, and she's a little crazy, too, because she lives in California. So it is 4 a.m. this morning.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Love that.
You also did a good job of eschewing the tie. You had the tie. I think you have the tie tucked into the pocket there.
Now, if I was going to do anything, I was going to look like Golic, talk like Golic, and get rid of the tie. That was basically requested.
Next thing we'll work on.
Or he was going to grab it from me.
Oh, and next thing we'll do is get rid of the jacket at some point as well.
Want me to? Okay, I'll do that.
Let's see how we do
it right now.
Let's just start with a one big general question, and that is this. Tim Hardaway Jr. gets a $71 million offer sheet. Otto Porter Jr. has a $100 million offer sheet. Kelly Olynyk is getting paid $50 million. Is this the new normal in the NBA, which is to say, do we have to stop looking at average players, non-difference-making players, potentially good players like Porter and Hardaway, and the money they're making? Do we have to stop batting an eye at this and just accept this is the new normal in basketball?
I think yes, Mike. The fact that Tim Hardaway, I don't know if I would pay Tim Hardaway Sr. that kind of money in his prime, maybe, but I got to think to myself that if at this point in the calendar and free agency, you're starting to get a little desperate and you're starting to throw money out there. I mean, then the Nets signed Otto Porter this offer sheet knowing that it's going to be matched by the Wizards. Their money's tied up for a couple days. They can't even go after whatever it is, $24 million a year. They can't even go after a player they might not want. So I don't know what to say. I mean, Drew Holiday, like, you and I, as fans, sports fans, and more than casual NBA fans, know Drew Holiday is spelt with a J and not a D. Most Americans, if Drew Holiday walked into their living room, they wouldn't know who he was. He got 5 years, $126 million to stay with the Pelicans. $126 million was what Kevin Garnett basically took in, 99, and that led to the lockout because it cost $20 more million than Clint Taylor paid for the T-Wolves franchise. So this is where, you're right, this is the new normal. This is where we are. People get this kind of money. Gallinari got a great deal from the Clippers yesterday. I mean, it was insane.
So then we start looking at the money people get for getting that, and can they help? How much can they actually help a team? Let's go to a team like San Antonio, who brings in a Rudy Gay. Now, compared to the money going around, he didn't get a ton of money, but this is a team we keep saying who can compete with San Antonio. While he's not one of the superstars, San Antonio is so good at putting pieces together. He's coming off the Achilles. He is 30 years old, was averaging 19 points before the injury. So how much, let's talk about teams relevant to maybe challenging Golden State. How much, if at all, can this help?
Well, $17 million was, sadly enough, it was a pittance to pay for Rudy Gay for the time they were going to get him a couple of years. But here's a guy who, Rudy Gay is probably your guy that comes off the bench at this point. He's a role player. I don't think of him as a premier starter in the NBA. If he is starting on your team, I don't think you're a championship contender.
Right.
I think, he's a fourth or fifth guy, or he's a role player. But that's where we go. Tim Hardaway, I would think off the bat, is probably the fourth best Nick at this moment. He got that kind of money. So, I mean, this is where we are. You're right. And I don't think does Rudy Gay appreciably help the San Antonio Spurs beat the Golden State Warriors? I think that's the mission. No.
Mike Wise in our studio with the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Okay, so right now the entire league is circles around two separate phenomena. One of them is the Warriors, and the other is LeBron James. Let's start with...
You're forgetting Adrian Wojnarowski.
And Adrian...
Well, there you go.
I just wanted you to say it.
And Woj. Yeah, I've given up on trying to pronounce his last name correctly.
No.
Is there any threat that you see right now that anything that has happened or could realistically happen between now and next June that is going to change your perception that the Warriors are going to win the championship next year with practically as little competition as they did this year?
Let's say, I was going to say Kevin Love to the Knicks and Melo to the Cavs. I don't think that's going to happen, and I don't know if it makes you that much better, actually. I would worry about that trade. Paul George to the Cavs would have helped a lot. If that trade had gone down and Kevin Pritchard to the Pacers hadn't put the brakes on it, that would have been a big trade.
Why didn't that one go down? I mean, that seemed like that was going to be a fit and a move.
I was told that three owners, Denver, Indiana, and Cleveland, had agreed to it, and Kevin Pritchard was sort of like, well, I'm getting Gary Harris and Lyles back. Like, what am I doing? Can I look for something else?
Well, he got so much more. I mean, what a deal he got.
Well,
huh?
again, Sabonis, Arvydas Sabonis, 1980s, that's a good trade.
Yeah.
His son, I don't know. And so at any rate, look, Oladipo's a role player from Indiana. I don't know if there's a team out there. The Celtics are going to make the Cavs sweat a little bit. Washington is going to be Washington. I thought they were more talented than the Celtics last year, but they didn't have as much heart. I don't see the Warriors not winning the title next year. If you told me 2 years and there was some more money shakeups and somebody left, maybe. But not now.
Well, let's go down that road, because I think after next year, and this is just me, Paul George will be gone from Oklahoma City, and I think Chris Paul will be gone from Houston. They can both be able to leave. Greeny, I would like you right now to give Mike your lineup.
This is me. I'm telling you right now, I'm going to be right.
I know exactly what you're going to do.
This is Greeny's lineup for the Lakers next year.
It doesn't have to be the Lakers, but that I think is the most likely
Let's just
place.
say the Lakers. Let's make it fun.
For the fun of it, let's make it the Lakers. On opening night of 2018, the starting five of the Los Angeles Lakers will include LeBron James, Chris Paul, Carmelo Anthony, Dwayne Wade, and Paul George. They'll all be free agents. They can make the money work if they want to.
Wait. Start that again.
LeBron. Paul. Melo. Wade. George.
What about Lonzo Ball? You're not going to start him? His dad will go crazy. His dad will go nuts.
That's probably true.
I'm surprised his dad hasn't signed for the veteran minimum yet.
We're going to bring D. Wade off the bench.
But you really believe this? These are five guys who are not on a team together now, who are all going to end up on a team together. I mean, I think it's ludicrous. I don't believe the whole banana boat thing.
I think the four amigos want to play together, and Paul George is like LeBron's little brother. He wants to play with him.
Please tell
That's
him
what's going to happen.
Well, look. Whether people are upset about it or not, players have a certain amount of power now that they've never had before. And guys are, if not colluding, at least getting together. And you hated this, by the way, when you were on the playground as a kid. If the best team picked another best guy, you're like, we're never going to get on. We're going to be calling next all afternoon.
Right.
It's the worst. But, look, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know if this would be a nugget for the show or not. I spoke to three people intimately familiar with LeBron James' plans, and he's not leaving Cleveland unless it's a disaster. Like if nobody takes the GM job, if they don't get any better, if they got swept by the Warriors in the finals last year, or they got beat by the Celtics going into the championship game, then I would start to believe you, Greeny. I would start thinking to myself, this could really happen. But you have to almost alienate LeBron James at this point. He would like to retire a Cav. I don't know if he'll come out and say that, but he'd like to. And obviously his camp and everybody, they want to be wanted, and that's part of the courtship thing. But I think that I would be shocked, actually. You know what I could see? LeBron James joining the Lakers down the road when he's that final piece to a championship puzzle. The whole team's there. He doesn't have to recruit anybody, say he's going to be there. He's past like being the guy who recruits a team, a super team together.
So you're talking about 3 years down the road? See, I don't think the Lakers can build that team without him. If all of a sudden that team is Lonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram and Julius Randle, maybe they add Paul George as a free agent. Look, maybe they add Paul George and Russell Westbrook. I don't know. I mean, is Russell Westbrook going to retire a Thunder? A
Thunder?
Member of whatever? What is
grammatically correct here, all right? So I don't think Russell Westbrook retires with the Thunder. This is, to me, the greatest gamble of the whole free agent period. You go out and get Paul George to basically save Russell Westbrook. Everything that's happened this offseason is almost like the re-recruiting of your own star. Gordon Hayward went to Boston because Danny Ainge is thinking to himself, Isaiah Thomas is coming up in a year. I got to show this guy that I'm doing business here. Otto Porter is going to be signed for some crazy amount because John Wall actually could leave in 2 years. And so this is it's the weirdest thing. It's the re-recruitment of your own star. Look what they did to keep Blake Griffin in L.A. They did everything but call him Gandhi. And from what I gather, I don't know if Gandhi hit his equipment manager, but he may have. but what I'm getting at is this is the new world. Sam Presti of the Oklahoma City Thunder made the biggest gamble there is. He took a guy Paul George, who might not even stay there and re-sign, very good chance that he doesn't re-sign, in hopes that he shows Russell Westbrook love so Russell Westbrook won't leave his little small market. Sam Presti is either going to be a genius or he's going to go down in a ball of flames next summer. Either way, I like it. I like the brazenness.
I do too. Look, he's got to try something. I mean, he is operating at such a natural disadvantage that he's got to try something completely outside the box, and I give him credit for doing it. Anyway, Mike Wise, you and your sister, thank you both so very much. Man. Pleasure to have you. Let's keep doing this.
This was great.
Okay, Kevin, for the grand prize of $1 million. What color is the White House?
I know this.
5 seconds.
Oh, switching to Geico could save you a bunch of money on car insurance?
Okay. Judges? That's true, Kevin. They'll allow it. Congratulations. You're a winner.
Woo! Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Mike Golic Jr. has rejoined us to react to some of your reaction to the conversation we had about the professional obligation of an employer in the case of an employee. And in this case, it stems from the National Football League and a player. When that employee has a problem with the use of drugs. Let's make this Straight Talk brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. Here's just some of the reaction. Give me quick thoughts. William tweets, I gave up smoking 15 years ago for a $50,000 a year job. There's no reason at 7 and 8 figures that these players can't stop besides immaturity and entitlement.
It does surprise me because all we hear, too, and again, I am not an expert on this subject. All we hear, Mike, is marijuana is not addictive. I don't know that if it's the physical addiction as opposed to the psychological, if you feel you need to. I don't know that. I guess that's what it comes down to. For me, I'm a little more black and white than you. If you're on the job and you get hurt on the job, they should be taking care of you. If you're choosing to do something that you know could get you fired and you get caught and you get fired, I have a lot less sympathy for you.
Also, I think we need to also determine, as important as that line is, what taking care of you looks like. Because there's financial compensation, which I think people would be a little more uncomfortable with, but then there's just general support, the idea of somehow keeping these guys in touch and not just casting them off in. Because, again, there's a difference between your job, whoever's sitting listening at home, and their job, and the fact that once this job is over, you're moving into a completely different skill set, one that in a lot of ways isn't transferable into the real world. And so that's more where I think the responsibility of the NFL lies, is preparing those guys in different ways. And if you're a guy, because we've talked about this.
But what is that way? Tell me that way, how to prepare them. I mean, I'm trying to figure out what now, outside of programs and the ability to go back to school and the off seasons and things. Again, both the PA and I'm not just saying the league, the PA offers things as well. I'm trying to figure out what more we're talking about to be there. Maybe the programs be better. I'm not sure what I'm understanding as far as what more they should be doing for them?
Well, I guess something to just almost reintroduce them into a society that is much different than the world of football that they've occupied. And that's things that, to their credit, organizations like the Player Trust and the NFLPA have tried to do in certain avenues. I just think it's very easy for us to cast these guys aside and forget about them in the same way you and I always talk about it with guys that are injured on college football teams.
Yeah, well,
how it becomes easy to just sort of forget about those guys and lose off to them as they go on to the real world. And because they weren't as high profile, because they were out of the limelight for a while, it becomes easy to forget. Those two groups seem to be congruent for me.
Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. As you're talking, I can almost hear people out there shouting at their televisions or radios saying, why is that the NFL's responsibility? If these players don't have life skills, if they didn't take whatever steps are necessary to prepare themselves for life after football, when all anyone talks about, whether they listen or not is up to them, anyone talks about is, this is going to be a short-lived career. The average NFL player lasts 3 years. You better be ready for something after football. If they didn't listen, why is that their boss's problem?
Because they're saying that while they're telling you, if you don't give this your full time and attention, you are not going to make it, and we are not going to value you. And that starts in college, and that goes all the way through the NFL, where if you have outside interest and you're seen as looking towards that future, you're seen as not being here where they want you and need you now. And that is communicated to you, whether it's verbalized or not in those ways. It's communicated in a number of ways where if you seem to be pointed towards something that's not the here and now in football, again, that myopic view that Dominique talked about, you're seen as less invested than you need to be, and that's frowned upon and that's stigmatized.
I agree with you. But there's still plenty of guys who played in the NFL who have degrees, who did put their time in and get their degree, and maybe would have, if they didn't make it in the NFL, could go on to something else. I mean, you're a guy that tried to get into the NFL, was on a few teams. It didn't happen for you. You were in film, television, and theater, and you were able to make a transition. I mean, there are plenty of guys who have gotten their degree. So I guess that's one of the biggest things still to me, because I'm on your side, more on that side of Greeny, of that as well. You have some of that in front of you. If you didn't take advantage of it, that's on you, not on the company. But I also understand, Mike, your part of there's no voluntary. You need to be invested in that.
Quick final word.
Not everyone is in the same position I was to take advantage of all those
You're
things.
right.
From background to where I was in college, those things aren't always equal.